Hey folks, Marty Nowicki from Impact Snap, coming to you from the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in upstate New York. It's winter here. It's time to start preparing for spring. Today's video, we're going to talk about how do we sync up the turn with the release to smash some drives. Okay, so we've got to work on a couple things today. We're going to be talking about the turn, what is your body doing, and a couple simple things that I like to talk about when people ask about turn. Imagine my spine were an axis, okay? If I were making a backswing, well, I can turn my pelvis, I can turn my clavicles around my spine. And a nice way of thinking about a backswing is that's kind of what's happening. If I turn my pelvis, ultimately, what's really turning is my spine. Okay? So in a backswing, turning your spine, in fact, then turns the pelvis, and turning the spine turns the clavicles. When we do this, we just want to make sure that the top three vertebrae are not turning all that much so that I can stay looking at the ball. So, if my spine is turning me on the backswing, how do I efficiently turn on the downswing? From the top, there are a few things that will be happening. First, I'm going to start turning the left leg and the left hip out of the way. That's the first thing that's going to turn. I like to think in terms of from the top of the swing. Now I want to start using the ground. I'd like to think in terms of turning both the legs and the chest at the same rate for the initial start of the downswing. What that does is that starts to increase the pressure I have into the ground. When you watch long drivers, like a Jamie Sadlowski or a Rory McIlroy, who's really not super big in stature but smashes the ball, you'll see that when they swing back, they're really reaching this, then they're turning their pelvis a little, and there'll actually be a little bit of raising in their backswing. When they start down, there's some lowering, which on the downswing, that's when we want to get into the ground. I would never want to see someone take a backswing where they're really lowering in the backswing, because ultimately you're going to start popping up or jumping before you ever get near the ball. If there was a little bit of raising in the backswing, that would be fine. Lowering, when I start to turn the left hip, both legs will flex. 3 simple ways to practice your turn in the downswing. Put a club across your knees. 3 things that I look for at the start of the downswing when we start to turn. Number 1, that both knees stay flexed. Number 2, that they stay level. Just take a club, put it across the very top of your kneecaps, turn so that they're level. I would never want to see someone turn so that one knee is lower than the other, because that will then add unnecessary pressure to my lumbar. If the knees are tilted, the pelvis is tilted, now my back can start to hurt. I want to see that they're flexed and level, and then the last thing, I want to make sure that they stay the same distance away from one another. A number of people have asked me, geez, why is my left foot turned out? And I'll include some pictures of Jack Nicklaus in his setup, Gary Player, Arnold Palmer. They would all start with the left foot turned out quite a bit. It would move a little in the backswing, replant, and in Arnold Palmer's case, would spin out completely going through post-impact. So back to turn, I'm turning the knees. They're staying flexed. They're staying level. They're staying the same distance, so I wouldn't want to see them go closer to one another. From there, I've got a lot of pressure under both feet where I can now push up and complete the pelvis turning. Backswing, I'm stretching, I'm reaching. The last part of the backswing, that's when I'll turn the pelvis a little bit. What that'll do is that'll help to really load the trail hip and the inside part of the trail leg. Then I can start to separate or turn the left femur, left knee, which helps to turn the left side of my pelvis. When that's happening, knees stay level. Now I've got a lot of pressure in the ground, so much so that I could jump if I wanted to. I'm turning to the point where now when my legs straighten, that'll help my pelvis to keep turning. So I've got the driving range mode set up. I've got a few golf balls. I want to smash some drives today. For me, you know, if I can carry the ball about 250, I'm pretty happy with that. Carry 257.9. So I want to stretch this going back. Reach to the top. That's above waist high is when I let my pelvis try and turn a little more on the backswing. That's where I'll get the load of the hip, pressure on the inside. If I was videotaping myself when I reach it back the second half of the backswing, I actually want to see my hip move away or inside of that line. Okay? Really powerful to load your hip. The last one was 260.0 carry. Very happy with that. So then I'm going to stretch to here, above waist high. That's when I let the pelvis go. This hip just turned back. I've got great load there, and now I'm ready to turn and use the ground. Carry there was 262. Not bad for a guy that's going to be Champions Tour eligible next year. $261.4. The thing to remember is all of this is happening in milliseconds. That's why I love this training aid and use it and own the company. But what this does is it allows me to train at a high speed so I can achieve all of these straight line conditions. I wouldn't want to hear the weight back there. So I don't want to straighten my arm. I don't want to uncock my wrist. I want to hear the click here or after. If the ball hits the bottom of the trail forearm, it's correct. After this point, watch our other videos because I talk about what happens after this point. So ultimately, once I get past this point where the club and the arm are straight, I don't really care what happens. It's just getting to that point with as much leverage as I can get. $260.7. A simple way to practice turn. I wouldn't use a driver because most drivers are graphite shafts. Take an iron or a club that has a steel shaft, or even just take a dowel. Stick it between your legs. I want you to flex both knees, and I want you to use your trail hand to kind of resist the turn. This is not turning. Yes, I might move the stick, but that is not turning. When I'm looking for turn, I'm looking for the left knee and hip to pull back. I'm looking for the right knee to shoot out. What that does is that gets my pelvis to turn. These femurs, that's the bone that connects your knee to your hip, or knee to your pelvis at the hip, that is what's turning, so I can increase the pressure so I can push and keep turning. Great simple drill. When we look at elite players, they are turned between 30 and 45 degrees at impact. Next time you film yourself from this view, I should not see both knees here. We should see the back part of your lead leg. For a right-handed golfer, that would be your left leg. And the more we see of that, the farther you're likely going to hit it. On the downswing, I want to sense that as I'm looking at it, the club is making nice little clockwise circles. When I start my downswing and I sense that, that's what helps to shallow the club. It's this simple little circle. When you make that circle, just make sure that the club doesn't go flashing past the lead arm. Always try and keep the lead arm out ahead so that we can develop that nice impact alignment right after impact. At impact, we should see that lowercase letter y, and we should see that turned, the more the merrier. The more I turn, if I'm here and I just turn, well, I need this club to fall in suit, which means it's got to drop the more I turn. A good sensation is just leave the club back there and start to turn. It should start to drop. If you're not seeing it drop, practice making these nice clockwise circles so that as you start to turn, we should see the club drop. That could add a lot of yards into your game. Please hit the subscribe button down below and fill in any questions or comments that you have. That helps us to make more videos for you. Until then, keep those great alignment conditions through impact.